Morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to this FM in Focus webinar. My name is Martin, and I work as Education Support Manager here at ACCA. And this session today is designed to support your preparation for the Financial Management exam. And for that, I'm very pleased to be joined by expert tutor Jo Tuffill. Before I hand over to Jo, I'd just like to cover a few housekeeping guidelines to support you in this session. Now, at the bottom of your screen, there are a number of buttons that you will find. So you'll see a help icon on the left, and that provides resources and information to help you resolve any technical issues that you might experience. There are some icons for the slides and the media player, and you'll need to see both of these during the webinar, so just ensure that you've selected them. There is an attendee chat function, which will enable you to engage with fellow webinar attendees, and that icon is on the right-hand side. We also have a list of available resources, the icon that looks like a file symbol. And if you click on this, you will access the resources that are relevant to this session, including the direct links. You can rearrange your screen to suit you and resize the windows if you need to. And if at any point you can't hear what we are saying or you can't see any visuals, please do refresh your browser. If you've registered for this webinar, you'll be sent an email tomorrow with details of how you can listen to it again. So don't worry if you miss something or if you have any technical issues, as you'll be able to access the recording. Now I'm going to hand over to Jo in a moment, and if you'd like to ask ACCA or Jo a question, then please click on the Q&A button, which is the middle icon at the bottom of your screens. Please note that we may not guarantee responding to everyone directly, but we do hope that the questions that we share will be helpful to everyone. So welcome once again, and now over to you, Jo.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here for this session in Focus FM. So my name's Jo Tuffill, and I'm a management accounting expert tutor. I've taught on ACCA courses for over 15 years. That might be going up now. Might be more like 17. But the point is, I am experienced and I'm absolutely passionate about supporting students through these exams. So let's have a look at the agenda for today. We're going to go through an overview of the latest examiner's report, one of the most important tools that you have in your kit to get through these exams. Then I'm going to go through some tips and tricks to deal with your exam preparations. We're going to go through the pre-September 23 mock, why it's important, and then we've got some Q&A. So there's quite a lot to cover. So please put your questions in the Q&A as Martin asked, and then we can have a look at answering some of those live. So let's start with the examiner's report. I have a little poll for you first of all. Do you read the examiner's reports? Yes, A, B, no, or C, don't know where they are. Have you done that? Let's see if you can answer the poll. Give you a couple of seconds to go through that. Looks like most of you have responded, so I'm going to end the poll. So that's great to see. We've got a yes, 56%, and no, which isn't great to see, 38%. Don't know where they are. Well, they are in the study site, in the student resources and the ACCA site. So under FM, you'll find the examiner's report. So make sure you go and find them because they're an important resource. You should be taking advice from the people who set your exam. So 56% of you, well done. 36%, you really do need to go and review them. So, what is in the examiner's report? Well, it's constructive guidance from the people who set your exam. And what they're going to do is highlight the strengths and weaknesses of candidates who've attempted previous questions, previous exams. And so what they do is they put in some 4 objective test questions from section A, and these are ones which cause difficulty or may have been quite straightforward, but students have fallen for the easy distractors. They also put in a section B whole case study question. And in FM, this does tend to come from either risk management or the business valuation area of the syllabus, because as you know, those 2 areas of the syllabus only get tested in the MCQ sections. So you're likely to have a question, or well, you're definitely likely to have a question, shall we say, in section B in those 2 areas. Then they got a section C constructive response questions, and they go through 2 of them from the March or June sitting. Now, as we know, there's lots of variance in the exam, so they picked out 2 particular questions which students may have found difficult. And here they provide a commentary. They go through all the tips and tricks on how to answer these questions and how the technique can be improved, including using the CBE functionality. It's really important that you read these articles, these reports. So I'm going to go through some of the questions which are on the report for this sitting. So the first one I'm looking at is a multiple choice from section A, and this was on settlement discounts. So if we read the top bit, it says directive company finances its working capital with an overdraft at a cost of 7% per year. Its major supplier offers a discount of 0.5% for settlement invoices after 10 days, rather than the usual 30 days. Assume a 365 day in the year. Which statement correctly explains what directive company should do? Now, there's 2 statements there which have 9.5% and 2 statements there which have 6.3%. You've got to decide whether it's beneficial to take the discount or not. What you have to do is you have to annualize that 0.5% settlement discount. Now, the 0.5% settlement discount applies to 20 days because you're paying within 10 days rather than the 30 days, so you're getting a 20-day benefit. So we have to annualize that 20 days 0.5% discount so that we can compare it to the annual 7% on the overdraft. Now, if the benefit exceeds the overdraft cost, therefore we would then accept the discount. So let's have a look at how you would answer this. So first of all, you annualize, as I said. It's 20 days that the discount has been given for. So the way we annualize it is we find out how many 20 days there are in the 365-day year. We use this formula, which you should learn. It's 1 plus the discount. The discount needs to be put in as a decimal, not as a percentage. Uplifted to the number of periods in a year, 20-day periods in a year, and then you minus 1 to get a decimal out, which you can convert into a percentage. So the annual benefit, if you do it correctly in your calculator, would be 1.005, which is 1 plus the discount, decimalized, to the power of 365 divided by 20, the number of periods, 20-day periods in a year, minus 1 times 100 to get to a percentage, and that would give you 9.5%. Now, this is greater than the cost of the overdraft at 7%, and so the discount should be taken. So the correct answer is therefore A, pay in 10 days because 9.5% per year, the benefit of the discount exceeds the cost of the overdraft. The distractor was if you got the 6.3% is incorrect calculation if you use 30 days and not 20 days. So remember, it's the discount period that you're annualizing, not the 30 days or the 10 days. The next question I want to go through is on financial markets. This is testing whether you're really understanding what different types of financial markets are and what they mean and the terminology. So when we go through, I'm going to quickly go through this and then just pick on one of them for us to go through in more detail. So foreign exchange market is currency conversion market, whereas a euro currency market is a loan and deposit market. Primary means new issues. Secondary means traded on. And a capital market is a long-term financial market, and a money market is a short-term financial market, so less than 1 year. So with those in mind, let's have a look at one part of the question. And you did need to get all 4 of these correct to get the 2 marks, by the way. But I'm just going to pick on one. I've got a poll for you here. Carlo Company needs to purchase short-term over-the-counter derivatives. Would we do that on the primary money market or the secondary money market? You need to read the question carefully. Short-term over-the-counter derivatives. Can you decide which one's right, A or B? I'll just give you a couple of minutes to decide. Getting some responses now, which is great. Giving you a bit more time. Make sure we get the majority of you answering. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So we're pretty much split, aren't we? Well, I suppose we're 60%, 40% on the A versus B. Okay, let's put you out your misery. So the actual answer is the primary money market. Let's go through these in turn though. So the first answer is Ambi Company needs to convert foreign currency into domestic currency. That would be on the foreign exchange market. Benji needs to issue new ordinary shares, and obviously the capital market or the secondary or the primary, well, if it's a new issue, then it would be the primary capital market. Your poll question says short term, so we have the money market as the answers, but we need to decide between primary and secondary. And because it's an over-the-counter, which means it's tailored to a person's individual needs, it's not going to be traded. So therefore, it's issued on a primary market. It's not going to be traded. And Dill needs to issue new long-term capital. Well, long-term capital is a capital market and not a money market. You had to get all those correct to get the 2 marks. And the examiner did note that quite a few people were distracted by that third one and picked the secondary money market and not the primary money market. Hopefully that's clear now. Right, the next one I'm looking at is section B, and it was a light company. It was on business valuations. I'm going to look at 3 questions from this case study, not all 5. Now, the first one I'm looking at is it was a particular problem because it was a reading problem, probably from a student's point of view. It says, what is the total market value of the 6% loan notes to 1 decimal place? And now this is the whole point of rereading the question before you select an answer or put your answer in. Okay, so if we have a look over here, it says those 6% loan notes have a nominal value of $22 million. We want the total market value, not the nominal value. So we've got to find a value for a loan note and then apply it to that total nominal value of 22 million. So these 6% loan notes are irredeemable. So we don't have to use the interpolation and the IRR formula to find it. We are using the simple formula, which is taking the cost of the interest divided by the before tax cost of the debt. Now, remember, the before tax is because we're doing it from an investor's point of view. So if they gave you two options of post tax and before tax, when you're valuing a loan note, remember you always take the before tax because it's from the investor's point of view, not the company's point of view. The investor is the one that is buying the loan note. So how do we do this? Well, first of all, 6% converts to $6 of interest because it's $100 per loan note in nominal value. Therefore, the market value of the loan note, as I said, is the interest divided by the before tax cost of debt of 7% as a decimal, and you get 85.71. Then students would have put that into the answer and got it wrong because they failed to read the question again and see that they needed to find the total market value. So in order to find the total market value, we need to take the 22 million, times it by the 85.71 and divide by 100. That gives us 18.857. Now, if you've gone that far and you've done really well, remember you need to reread the question and it says 1 decimal place in millions. So therefore, that would be 18.9 million. Again, if you incorrectly did the rounding down, for instance, say you put it in at 18.8 million, that would be an incorrect answer. So this is a lesson in rereading the question, going through it carefully so that you don't slip up and lose those 2 marks through silly errors. Now I have another poll question relating to Light Company. They also had some preference shares. So which of the following statements is correct? The market value of an irredeemable preference share is calculated by multiplying the dividend by 1 minus the tax rate and then dividing by the cost of the preference shares. B, preference shares are a tax-efficient way of raising finance. C, preference shares can be difficult to value when they pay a variable rate of dividend. And D, redeemable preference shares are classed as equity in the statement of financial position. So you needed to select one which is correct. Have a go at this poll. This may take some time, so I'll give you a few more minutes. So we're not quite at 50% yet selected their answer, so we'll give you another 20 seconds or so to see if anybody else wants to submit an answer. Okay, I think we're going to call it a day. So we've got various answers here. We've got the majority have gone for D, 39%. Then we've got A, 28%, B, 11%, and C, 20% about. Well, there's definite spread. So this obviously was a difficult question, and the examining team were right to put it into the article, weren't they? Let's go through the answer then. Well, the answer is preference shares can be difficult to value when they pay a variable rate of dividend. And the reason that is true, that's a correct statement, because they are difficult to value if you have variable rates. A fixed rate, it's much easier because you can use the formula and not have to calculate different rates. So why are the others incorrect? Well, preference shares are a tax efficient way of raising finance. Dividends do not get a tax deduction. Remember, there's no tax deduction for dividends. So you pay them out of post-tax profits. A, the tax rate is not applied when valuing preference shares as it's from an investor's point of view. And also, dividends do not get a tax deduction anyway. So it's wrong on both the counts. First of all, we do it from an investor's point of view. And secondly, dividends do not get a tax deduction. And finally, redeemable preference shares are classed as debt. They're not classed as equity. So C is the only one that it could be. I would have done that through process of elimination and therefore come up with C as being the only viable answer. And then finally, from this section B question, this one is on behavioural finance. Now, if you had done as you are requested to by the examining team, read the technical articles, then this question would have been quite straightforward for you. There's a technical article on behavioural finance and there's also a podcast. So therefore, if you got this question, then you should have been able to get it right because if you'd studied that article. So let's go through it. So first of all, A, behavioural finance supports the view that stock market bubbles result from rational investment decisions. Stock market bubbles are an anomaly. Therefore, there's things that going on outside the control of the stock market. And so it's actually a result of irrational investor behavior, not rational. Okay. B, noise traders make investment decisions by using software to analyze real-time share price data. Well, noise traders are disruptors. They don't follow a uniform process. So analyzing real-time share-based data using software is rational behavior, okay? So they make uninformed rather than informed investment decisions, okay? That's the whole point of them. So that is incorrect. Share price anomalies do not undermine the perfect capital market. Of course they do. Perfect capital market means it's an efficient capital market and you wouldn't get a share price anomaly. Therefore, they do in fact undermine them. So that's also an incorrect statement. So the only correct statement is therefore D, the momentum effect, which means that as share prices increase, they will continue to increase. So investors keep buying them. Or the opposite, if share prices are falling, then again, people will be selling. That's called the momentum effect. So that is a correct statement. Now I want to go through the section C and the real importance of using the practice platform in your revision and your practice for this exam. You do need to use it. It's where you're going to do your exam on. And this is practice. It is totally important, and the examining team really believe that this makes a difference. So first of all, there's no use to use a specific format, only the recommended formats. So I do recommend that you do learn a format for different types of questions, like for WACC calculation, your net present value calculations. Those layouts are so important. You don't want to be trying to devise that in the real exam. You need to practice your formats, learned ones. You need to make sure you label your workings and use headings. I need to be able to see when I'm marking what that number means, okay? And what the area of the workings are for. Markers can see the formulas in the cell, so there's no need to write out a formula, for instance, for inventory days. You don't need to write out that formula. The examiner knows the formula. You need to just show in the cell inventory days as being inventory divided by cost of sales times by 365 or 360. Put the figures in the cell. We mark the workings. We do not want to see just one 30 days put in the cell. We need to see the workings behind it. You need to expand any columns and format numbers. We don't want to see a load of hashtags, and we don't want to see a load of decimal places. You need to be able to use copy and paste to become efficient and quick at this. A lot of the time, some of the questions require repeated calculations. So you've done it once. Why not just copy and paste those formulas into another part of the spreadsheet and then replace the numbers? Therefore, you don't have to spend time creating those formulas all over again. You need to highlight your answers and label them clearly so we know which one is your answer. And make sure you practice using those functions like the IRR and the net present value, because if you get them wrong, if you haven't practiced them, there are some common errors when you're using those functions, but they're very quick and easy to do. So it's really important that you practice them. I've now got a video of me debriefing one of the questions which is on the examiner's articles. Please go to the media player to have a look.
So here I am on the practice platform. Grafton Co is from the business finance area of the syllabus, and it's asking us to calculate the theoretical ex-rights price, the current earnings per share before the investment project, the revised earnings per share after the investment project, assuming the rights issue is successful, and then asking us to look at gearing before and after on a market value basis. The final requirement here is to discuss the views of the directors, the small and large shareholders. I will not be going through that final requirement. What I will be doing is going through the first four, showing you the spreadsheet technique required to do this quickly and efficiently to ensure you get all those follow-through marks if you make a small mistake. So the first requirement is to calculate the theoretical ex-rights price per share. Let's look at that part of the scenario. It's the second paragraph that we need. They're proposing a 2-for-5 rights issue at a 25% discount of the current share price of $8.40. Look, that nominal value of ordinary shares is $2. We're going to use the quick way of doing the TERP calculation now. So I've labelled it up Part 1 and TERP. Now the quick way of doing this is to do it from an individual basis. So as we've got a 2-for-5 rights issue, the existing number of shares is 5. The new number of shares is going to be 2. The existing shares are at $8.40. And the new shares are going to be at a 25% discount. So reference that up and times it by 0.75. Gives you the 25% discount. We then simply multiply the existing number of shares by the share price and do the same, copy that down to the rights shares. We then sum those up and we divide by 7, which is the sum of the 5 and the 2. 54.6 divided by 7. And that's $7.8. Highlight it so the examiner knows that's your answer. Highlight TERP so they know that's your answer. And there you have it. That's quickly and efficient for 2 marks. We're now going to do part 2 and 3 together. So in order to calculate the current earnings per share and then the revised earnings per share, I'm going to put them side by side because they're going to use the same information. Now the information that we require is in the financial statement information prior to raising the new finance. We need to find the profit after tax divided by the number of shares in issue for the earnings per share. So we've been given the profit before interest and tax, and we now need to take off interest and then take off tax, and we'll have profit after tax. So I've put that information in so far. I'm going to put 9,500. I'm going to do it in round thousands in the same way that they have in the question. And then I'm going to take interest off. Interest comes from the non-current liabilities, the 8% loan notes. And so we need to do 25,000, or effectively 25 million, times by 8% for our interest. So 25,000 times by 0.08 gives you 2,000. Profit before tax is therefore 9,500 minus the 2,000. And our tax rate can be found here. Corporation tax is payable as a rate of 16% per year. So we're going to take the profit before tax figure and times it by 16%. Profit after tax is then 7,500 minus that. And we get profit after tax of 6,300. We now need to find the number of shares in issue. And we go back to our statement and it says there's 15 million shares in the nominal value. However, remember up here, it said the nominal value was 2 per share. So if you didn't see that, that would then become a follow-through mark. So we've got 15,000 divided by 2. So 7,500 or 7.5 million shares in issue. Now we need to answer the question, which was the earnings per share, and we simply take the profit after tax divided by the number of shares. And the answer is 0.84. Highlight it. Now calculate the revised earnings per share and the share price after the investment in the project, assuming the rights issue is successful. So there's no point in writing this all out again. All you need to do is copy and paste it over, and then you can amend as required. And it says the new project is expected to earn 20 million of revenue each year and have an operating profit margin of 18%. So operating profit margin is what we need. That is our profit before interest and tax, and that's what's going to be added to the current one to get the revised one. So if I put the investment project changes here, we're going to be having 20 million. So keep it in round thousands times by 18%. And so therefore the revised is going to be that plus the new amount, which is 13,100. Interest will remain the same. Profit before tax has moved because I've used the same formula. Tax is applied at 16%. And so the new profit after tax is 9,324. See how quick that was? All I had to do was copy it across and then add in that extra investment. The shares will change though because we're using the rights issue. So we need to add in the rights shares. And remember, it was a 2 for 5, so it's going to be 7,500 divided by 5 times by 2. So we add in the rights shares, and we automatically then get the earnings per share becoming now 0.888. We were also required to find the share price. Now, in order to find the share price after the investment, you need to go to this area here, and it says Grafton Company's price-earnings ratio can be assumed to be unchanged by taking the project. So that means if we calculate the price-earnings ratio before, then we keep it constant. So we need a price-earnings ratio before and the share price before to calculate that. So the current share price is 840, so therefore the price-earnings ratio is 840 divided by 0.84, 10. So therefore, if we keep that constant, then the earnings per share times by the price-earnings ratio will be the new share price. So that is now number 2 and number 3 done. The final requirement I'm going to go through is calculate the current gearing and the revised gearing after the investment project using market values and assuming the rights issue is successful. So we're going to do that under here. And you're going to be looking at gearing. Now, it's good to use the same columns because we may be using some of the same data. So first of all, remember we want market values, and we need to go back to the scenario and look at what they define gearing as. They define gearing as non-current liabilities over non-current liabilities plus equity. And the current industry average is 25%. We therefore need debt and we need equity. Well, equity market value will be the number of shares in issue times by the share price. And that will be the same for the revised. Now the debt won't change, so we just need to calculate it once. So we have 25,000 nominal value, and they're telling us here the loan notes are $100 per loan note and the market value is 110. So to do that, we do 25,000 times by 110 divided by 100, and that's 27,500. It's not going to change, so therefore it's 27,500 in the revised. We can now calculate the gearing, and remember it's debt over debt plus equity. So we find debt and then we divide it by putting brackets in, debt again plus equity. Make it a percentage and then copy that across so you don't have to do that again. And there we have our answers. So highlight them and there we're done. Hopefully you can see how quickly and efficiently I got those 9 marks from doing the TERP, the earnings per share and the share price, and then finally calculating the gearing. The examiner's report clearly tells you that you need to have good spreadsheet technique, and so it's important to use the functionality ahead of your exam, clearly laying out your answers, showing your workings in the cells, and then highlighting your final answer. This enables the examining team to follow through any mistakes and give you own figure rule marks. Thank you for listening.
Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed watching that debrief and it was clear on how you need to approach these questions, be efficient and get all the marks available, even if you make some small mistakes. I'm seeing lots of emojis, so that's good news. So now I want to go through Prepare to Pass FM. So hopefully this will answer some of the Q&A that's already been asked. I've tried to answer some of it while I was watching the video, but we'll see. Hopefully on the live one, I can answer some of the other questions you've put in there. So my tips and tricks come in 5 forms, and I'm going to go through each of these in turn. First of all, you have to have the right mindset. So that means having a game plan when you go into the exam. Are you going to go through the exam in the normal order, A, B, C? Or are you going to think about changing it up? Because it's really important to get a good Section C done. And so I like you to put that in the middle of your exam. Section C is potentially where you pass or fail this paper because it's where the marking team can allocate you marks. It's not just automatically, obviously, marked through the MCQ sections. So it's important to put that probably in the middle of your exam so you do not run out of time on it. Time management is key, absolutely. So I recommend doing 50 minutes on Section A, 80 minutes on Section C, and 50 minutes on Section B. Within those sections, you must focus on the easier marks. So in sections A and B, it's really important to use the flagging technique. So when you come across an MCQ which you think, I don't know what to do with this, just flag it and move on to the next one. You'll get to the end of the 15 questions in either section A or B, and you'll find that you've probably done more than half and getting the easier or the mediocre marks, medium-term marks, before you then tackle those harder marks. And so there's no point in wasting time on harder questions that you may not even get the answer right from. So using that flagging technique will make sure that you're calmer and you've scooped up those easier marks before you tackle those harder marks. Do not go over time on section A and B. Do not go over time on section A and B, because all you're doing is tackling the harder marks and not the easier marks. The same goes for section C. When you're writing out a question, you've probably got most of the marks in the first 10 minutes. And if you're then spending overtime getting the rest of them, you're ending up trying to get the harder marks and not the easier marks. My next tip is bet to win. Do not avoid the topics you dislike. The whole syllabus is tested, and you can bet your bottom dollar that you'll get the one topic that you don't like. So you have to practice those topics. And then if you do get them and it comes up, you're ready to pass. Of course, obviously, if you don't practice them, they'll come up. But if you do practice them, they may not come up, and don't be disappointed because it means you've got the topics that you like. So the classic one is Islamic finance. Everybody says, do I really need to learn Islamic finance? Yes, you do. Because actually in March, June sitting, 6 marks was on Islamic finance. And that's 6 marks that you could easily have learnt and got on your way to passing this exam. So my next tip is to learn theory and techniques, not answers. Now, what we do often is we do lots and lots of question practice, and then we remember that question that we've just done, and we start doing that answer. That's not a good thing to do. You need to learn the theory and techniques, not the answers. So you need to learn formula and process to apply to a WAC question, for instance. Your format needs to be there, and then you need to learn the formulas and then popping in the workings into the main WAC calculation so that it's clear and easy to follow for the examiner. Same applies to a net present value calculation. You need to be able to explain concepts, not just calculate CAPM, the cost of equity, be able to explain how CAPM is a concept. Start from start to finish. Why does it use systematic risk only? That needs to be explained from portfolio theory. So these are things the examiner is testing now. It's not just testing how to calculate things, it's testing whether you understand concepts and you can write out the concepts. Pros and cons of the net present value, pros and cons of the other investment appraisal techniques are tested quite regularly. So learn them, but be able to apply it to the question. Don't just list out the previous answer to a question that you've just learned, and look at what the question is asking and then apply it. And as I said before, definitions, for instance, those Islamic finance definitions. Distractors I've always mentioned. You need to understand why they're there. The reason they're there is because they're common errors. So you're likely to make that common error and therefore pick the wrong answer. So you need to build a review of them into your question practice, and therefore you're more likely to spot them. The key, though, is to not rush through the multiple choice ones, because therefore that is one of the key reasons for failure. You need to make sure you reread the question again, probably twice before you select the answer, because you may spot the error, like for instance, the total market value was required and not a single market value of a loan note. So really important to do that. And then finally, written questions obviously are important. Many students feel that this is a calculation exam, but it's not. It's 50-50 in terms of the theory, discursive type questions in the MCQs and the calculations. It's always 50-50. And of course, in the written questions, in the constructive response questions, it's again 50-50. So you are not going to pass this exam unless you're going to write well. So the examining team comments are, they want professional presentation. That means full sentences. They want you to address the requirement that is present, not the desired one. I've intimated this. We've learned an answer. We want that answer to fit their question. You need to read their question. It's their requirement, not the one that you've learned previously. You could probably use the theory from that learnt question, but you need to answer the requirement with it. So that means planning your answers using headings to split the requirements. So in a recent, that Grapham company one that we just had a look at, the written requirement was discuss the views of the directors and both the small and large shareholders in relation to the new project and its financing. So that had a requirement which had 3 requirements. It had the directors, it had the small, and it had the large shareholders. So you had to address 3 points. And so therefore, you would therefore use headings, directors, small, large, and therefore you were going to spread your marks and more likely to get the full marks because you're addressing all 3 requirements. You do need to detail the number of points that reflect the marks. So if there's a 6-mark question, we need 6 detailed sentences to get those marks. When you're also doing this, it's verbs and responses are important. Do not use bullet points, use full sentences. Do not use bullet points, use full sentences. Bullet points don't get half marks anymore. Bullet points do not get half marks, they get 0. So you need to look at the verb being used in the requirement though. Identify, describe and comment, then a short sentence will suffice. I'll repeat that one more time. It's not a bullet point will suffice, a short sentence will suffice. Okay? But if it says explain, discuss or critically discuss, then more detail will be required. So first of all, what you do is you state the point in a sentence and then you explain the point, ensuring that the examiner understands the point you're making. If the requirement says the name of the scenario in the question or the requirement, then you must illustrate the point using the scenario because it's asking you to. If the name of the question is, or the case is not in the requirement, then it's a theory point. So you're using your knowledge and you can use your own example to explain the point. I have an example here for you. Always think because and why when you're doing explained points. So here was the question, critically discuss the usefulness of internal rate of return as an investment appraisal method. As 5 marks go, we would need 5 points. So 5 sentences. And as it says critically discuss, we need pros and cons. So we need a mix. So the first answer, which most people will come up with, it is easy to understand by managers. That will not get a mark because it's a bullet point. It's correct, but it's a bullet point. You need to make it into a full sentence. It's easy to understand by managers as they are familiar with relative messages such as percentages. That would be enough to get 1 mark, but I've made it clear by, for example, saying inflation rates and interest rates. You cannot rely on writing 5 words as a bullet point to get any marks. It would be 0, even if it's a correct bullet point. Please ensure that you're not giving marks away and writing full sentences which are explaining your points. So that was it from me on my tips and tricks. Just want to make sure you know that there is the ACCA Study Hub now, which is available to you. It includes a free online study content text, short quizzes, flashcards, practice and revision questions. And you're going to access it through My ACCA, go to My Qualifications and then the ACCA Study Hub. And now I have a short video for you to look at. So you need to go to your media player.
Let's take a closer look inside Study Hub, your ultimate study resource. It's a digital hub. Study Hub gives you online access to study materials from ACCA. It works like an ebook with added interactivity. It's a knowledge hub. Study chapters help to increase your understanding. A visual overview shows all the topics in each chapter, so it's easy to see how they link up. It's a revision hub. End of chapter quizzes put your knowledge to the test. The multiple choice questions are automatically marked so you can review your performance. Flashcards test your knowledge of key definitions. Check your answer against the definition on the reverse of the card. Practice questions help you prepare for your exams. You can instantly compare your answers to the suggested solutions. It's an anywhere hub. Whenever and wherever you want to work, Study Hub is there on web and mobile. It's a success hub. 79% of students said Study Hub made them more confident. 90% said they would use Study Hub again. Use Study Hub to help boost your progression. Just go to your My ACCA account and click on the Study Hub link.
Hello. Hello, back again. Hopefully that was clear to you. It's a great new resource for you all, and it's free. So now it's the importance of doing a mock. Everybody should know that on the practice platform, there is a new release of a mock for September. And so it's important that you do use these. Now, one of the things I do want to make clear, though, is it is a mock. It's not a past paper. It's a representation of what you could get, and it's a practice exam. Past papers are in a separate area, and those are the ones which have examiners' reports. So this is a mock and not a practice exam past paper. So remember, this is a learning exercise. So this is your chance to practice on the platform. You take your exam on using this mock, practice your game plan, practice your time management, that 50-80-50 rule, and more importantly, practice your nerves. Do not do this over a day. You don't have a day to do the exam. Do it in 3 hours. Sit yourself in a room on your own with your water, with your calculator, and do it in 3 hours. And therefore, you're more likely to feel those nerves that you're going to feel in the real exam, so you can handle them. So make sure you've got a friend or somebody who's invigilating you potentially, tells you when to start, tells you when to finish. Really get yourself in the zone and make sure you make the most of that mock. You are 12 to 40% more likely to pass if you do a mock. Now, of course, you don't have a tutor to mark that mock for you necessarily. So what you then do is once you've finished the mock, you go into the results tab on the practice platform, not results tab, into the mark tab on the practice platform. And sections A and B will automatically be marked for you, and you can see the answers as you go through it. But section C isn't automatically marked, and you need to get that self-marked. So you either self-mark using the answers in the platform under the mark tab, or why not try and get a study buddy to mark it for you? They might not be able to find the answers because you haven't labelled things clearly. They might not be able to see your workings because you haven't done that clearly. And it's all good practice to let them know where you're not showing the examiner your key learning, and they can't then follow through your answers. So why not find a study buddy who can mark that mock for you? That would be my top tip. Brilliant. So unless we have any other things to do, I don't think we do. We're going to go on to Q&A now. So Martin, are you coming back online for the Q&A, or am I just doing it? Oh, there you go. Hi.
Hi, Jo. Happy if you can just proceed with the questions, not a problem.
Okay, let's go. All right. So I'm reading some questions here. When discounting, I prefer to use Excel functionality, find it quicker than using the tables. However, this always gives a slightly different answer than if I had used the tables. Will I be penalised for this, or are the answers accepted? Well, okay, so it depends, doesn't it? So if you're in section C, absolutely, the spreadsheet functionality is factored in. So if you're using the IRR function or the net present value function, you will get slight differences between using the tables or the discounting factors, and therefore it's factored into the answers. But if you're in the MCQ section, you don't have the spreadsheet functionality, so you can't use it. So you must use the tables because the answers will be based on using those discount factors in the tables. So when you're in the MCQ sections, please use the tables. Next question, how do you overcome the feeling of failure? Oh, this is sad. I'm sorry if you feel like this. Well, what I do is I kind of think you've got to think about ACCA mindfulness, and this is where you pick yourself up after failure. And so you need you to focus on 3 things. You've got to focus on the fact that your intention, that you're intending to get qualified. And so the end game is this reward, and this will motivate you. It's hard when you fail, but you really do need to focus on, I want to get qualified, and therefore your intention. You then need to think about attention. You need to plan your study time. This is your focus. If you need to put everything else to one side, especially now with 3 weeks to go to the exam, and focus on your study time. Put other things to one side, and therefore your attention is focused on your exam. And you need to have attitude, i.e. a positive attitude. No negativity, please. Focus on the easier marks in the exam, not the harder ones. You know, if you come across a hard MCQ, move on. Then there'll be another one that you can do. And so focus on the fact that you can do what you can't do. And therefore, when you get something wrong, you're not focusing on the negatives, you're focusing on the positives. So always focus on the things that you get right and go, well done, and I'm going to get there. So that's the feeling of failure. So focus on your attention, attitude, and intention, please. Okay. So the next question was, section C, if I do not get the answer right, but show all the workings and have it mostly or partly correct, do I get the marks? Absolutely. The examining team have marking guides, and the most common mistakes will be in those marking guides. So it's really important to show all your workings so they can follow it through and give you those own figure rule marks. Do not just put those answers in off your calculator. You must show your workings in the spreadsheet and use the functionality of the cells. So yes, you will get the marks even for small mistakes. Right, so this is a common question. With so many topics to revise and revision, can you advise on a plan on the best way to spend your time in 3 weeks before the exam? Well, absolutely, I would. If you've got a problem with some topics, I'd traffic light your topics. So to work this out, I would do some MCQs in your areas. So you can traffic light your topics red, amber, and green. So if you're finding a topic particularly difficult, that would be a red topic. And you probably need to go back and look at the difficult areas in that topic which you're not getting and re-revise it. If you've got green topics, those are the ones where you're consistently getting the MCQs right, so you probably don't need to do much work in those. The amber topics probably need to know they're on the right lines because you're maybe falling for distractors in the MCQs, and so you just need to ensure you reread the question. It may be that it isn't a technique thing, it's more of a it may not be a knowledge thing, it's more of an exam technique thing in that you're not reading the question clearly. So I would really concentrate mostly on the recent questions and the examiner's reports in these final 3 weeks, because we are seeing some repetition in questions and types and questions that they're asking you. Now I've got another question here which says, what is the best way to learn the formulas? Well, the best way to learn formulas is for me, is for you to have a crib sheet. Literally have a crib sheet in order of topics. And the more you write them out, the more you have a crib sheet that you can see in your study area, and you're looking at them every day, the more likely they're going to go into your head. It's actually best also to learn the WACC formulas and the business valuation formulas side by side, because they are the reverse of each other in the main, except you leave out tax on the debt ones. So that's my best way, is to have a crib sheet. Where are we? In June 23, I failed my exam by 3%, but had 30 minutes left. When I finished, I think there was probably more knowledge than time restraints. Yeah, so I think having 30 minutes left is definitely knowledge. I'd be definitely. So hopefully you've got that knowledge up now, but perhaps potentially you didn't write in full sentences, which saves time. Perhaps you didn't show your workings sufficiently. Perhaps you rushed through the MCQs and fell for the distractors. So I would concentrate on your time management, making sure that you take the full time that you need to write those written bits and make sure you're getting the marks, and make sure you're not rushing through the exam. Slow down, because 30 minutes is a long time. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the Q&A. I'm sorry I didn't get through to it. Is there anything else you want me to say, Martin?
Hi, Jo. Yeah, so I think that's all the time we had for the session today, but maybe just one last item. It's just a couple of weeks to the exam, and what would be your final thoughts or advice to the students to how to utilize the remaining short time before the exams?
Well, my most important tip is to basically concentrate on the topics you don't like, because they're more likely to come up, aren't they? But also go to that practice platform, do that mock, because it will indicate to you areas where you're lacking the knowledge that you need. And as I said before, the examining team do have these wonderful examiners articles, and they go through the past questions in the recent years, and they are repeating themselves. Some of these questions, they tend to be coming up. You'll see in the examiner's articles, they'll say this question was previously tested in a similar format 3 sittings ago. So therefore, practicing the past questions is one surefire way of making sure that you're going to be well prepared for this exam. It's not going to be wasted time doing past questions, because they are being reinvented and repeated in a similar format.
All right. Thank you very much, Jo, for the great session. That's our time now. And thank you everyone for attending the session. We do hope that the information we have shared is useful and will contribute to your preparations towards the exam. So please remember that we have comprehensive support resources on the acccaglobal.com website on the Students tab. Support resources, select the exam that you're sitting, and you'll find a whole list of the resources that we have mentioned in this session to assist you with your preparations. Just to remind you again that you will be receiving an email with a link to access the recording of this session. So in case you missed out on any aspect of it, please feel free to go back and listen to it again. So from all of us here at ACCA, wishing you all the best and good luck in your exams. Thanks and bye-bye.
Good luck. Bye. Thank you.